Good day, and wherever you are, happy Thursday, and welcome to this episode of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. I am your host, Rondell, Donawa, attorney at law, and once again, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to bring our next exciting episode of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Of course, you can stream us on the World Wide Web, WESNCC.com, as well as traditional media, and don't forget our podcast, Strictly Legal with RondellDonawa.com. And of course, today we have a very interesting topic dealing with the circumstances or the legalities surrounding the tax, appealing either customs duties, either BRL stamp duty, but basically the functionality of the tax appeal board in Trinidad and Tobago. Many of you probably are not aware that there is a tax appeal board. And I have with me no other than Nizam Saladeen, who is an attorney at law. He basically has been practicing for the last 11 years. His areas of practice include civil law, industrial relations, tax appeals, property tort, probate, constitutional law. He currently practices out of Gallus Chambers, which is situated at 65 Gallus Street, Woodbrook. Of course, he had his first degree in computer science, and that is very interesting because before law, that is something I wanted to do as well, computer engineering, right? And it so happened that I end up doing law. So I think great minds. So of course, no other than Mr. Nizam Saladeen. Good morning.
Thank you, Rondell, and happy Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday to you as well, and it's almost weekend.
It's almost weekend, that's right.
So thanks for joining us on this noble set where many great minds have sat alongside you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Yes. So we are here today to speak about the tax appeal board, basically challenging custom matters in the tax appeal board. Yeah. So can you just give an overview of what exactly what is the tax appeal board?
The tax appeal board, they were created out of Parliament. They're governed by the Tax Appeal Act, Chapter 4.50, and it's a superior court, meaning that their judgments can set precedents as well as they can hold in contempt for not following their orders. So it's a very powerful court. It's synonymous to the High Court. They operate out on Frederick Street in Port of Spain, but right now the matters are very much virtual since of COVID. I mean, that's one of the pluses of virtual. Now they deal with any assessment of tax. And we have two state authorities that assess taxes for us. We have the BIR, of course, which we're all familiar with, filing income tax, corporate tax, there's VAT, there's stamp duty. We also have customs, and customs have import duties, which we call assessments. So the tax appeal court, you can use as a venue to ventilate your issues on the assessments by these bodies, by these two state bodies. And that's the purpose of the tax appeal court. They have a quorum of probably 3 judges that sit. They're addressed as Your Honor, unlike the High Court where they have My Lord.
Similar to the industrial court.
The industrial court, there you go. Yeah, there's a chairman that sits. Now, you can have 2 judges sitting, but of course, there's a permission of the parties, of course. But there are 3 judges at any point in time.
Yeah. Indeed. And of course, you said it comprises three judges. In terms of how often does the court sit?
Oh, they sit from 9 a.m. to 4 o'clock. They sit 5 days a week. They observe the same times as the High Court when it comes to holidays, etc. They sit constantly.
And in terms of challenging matters, the process in challenging matters, is it that you have to seek counsel from an attorney at law to represent you in the tax appeal? I
would recommend you take counsel. I mean, it has its own rules, and the rules are circumscribed in the Tax Appeal Act. Tax appeal rules, they're similar to the CPR as well. And to bring our matter, a lot of people don't know about bringing matters to the tax appeal court. I do believe the tax appeal court deals with matters on a more efficient basis than the High Court because just a matter of time. They have less cases there than the High Court. So to start it off, you have within 20 days when you've been served with an assessment to bring it towards the tax appeal court. But most of us are out of time. That's the first hurdle you have to cross, right?
And when you and for the layman, when you just walk us through the process in terms of, let's start with assessment
we can start with that.
BIR. Let's start with BIR assessment.
We can start with BIR assessment. So you file it, let's go to like an income tax return. You file an income tax return, and then one day you get a notice they're going to do an audit on you. During that, there's the assessment stage. I'll tell you, provide the following documents, and we're doing an assessment. Your report will come back and say, okay, we more than likely sometimes they'll say, hey, we found that
you overpaid.
Then have no work for us. So They will find that, listen, we're going to charge you extra taxes. Sometimes that's fine, people are willing to pay, but then there's a penalty. The penalty is the interest, right? And if you're doing an audit with 6 years back, that could accumulate. So people try to challenge it. There's a second stage called the objection stage where you object to the assessment. And by way of right, it's an objection letter, you object it, and they will redo the audit by another auditor. That auditor may have the same findings. Sometimes I find on most occasions they will be a little more lenient and they will probably say, okay, we'll allow certain expenses or allow certain income and they will reduce your tax amount. If you're dissatisfied, from the day they serve that assessment on you, you have 20 days to bring it to the taxable court. And you bring it by way of filing a notice of appeal. Now, like I said before, a lot of people, they miss that deadline. A layman's would know about it. When they go to an attorney, there are not much lawyers specialized in tax. So they have to find another attorney. That time you could use as an excuse. You put in your affidavit, like a normal in the High Court, you make an application for extension of time. Rule 17 of the taxable rules allow you to do that. And more than often, I must say this, the taxable lawyers, the ones in the BR that I've met, and in customs as well, they would say, look, I consent to the extension of time. So if you're 6 weeks or probably a month, they will give you that. Sometimes you will have to make the application, be heard in court, and they'll probably contest it.
Now, when you are served with the results or the feedback from the objection, right, is it that they would advise on the notice that you have 20 days to file an appeal?
I've seen that sometimes, and sometimes I've not seen it at all.
Because usually in some circumstances, in some government bodies, at least somewhere below, there will be a caveat. Listen, you have certain amount of days.
There's some inconsistencies with that. I mean, sometimes you'll get reasons for the taxation, sometimes just a one-liner you'll get. So you see it sometimes, and sometimes you don't see it.
And therefore, I mean, yes, you were stating about initiating the process, but how can the public be aware that there is a process such as appealing such decisions?
That's right. That's the thing about it. So, a lot of people take it to their lawyers immediately. I mean, a lot of these businessmen and sole traders, they already have a lawyer on their contact. So they'll call them and say, listen, this is the situation. The tax is $100,000, probably $1 million, and they'll contact their lawyer immediately. And like I said, there's not much lawyers specialized, so they will find and refer you to someone else. A lot of accountants know about it as well, though. So I have gotten referrals from accountants. They have called me and said, listen, I have a client. He's disputing the tax. Can you help him out? And I said, all right, let's have a conference and bring the documents.
And I'm thinking as an attorney, you also have to have some level of knowledge in mathematics, in figures, of course, right? Yeah. In computation. I mean, and I guess that's where your computer science background comes in. So let's deal with, okay, you have the example of the income tax. Right. What other areas of tax?
So you'll have, you could have stamp duties, you can have corporate tax, that's another common one as well. You can have VAT.
And could you explain, of course I know we will get into the challenging part, which is the customs.
Right. Sure.
But in terms of stamp duty, how can one? What are the circumstances in which one challenges?
So interesting. There's a
stamp duty.
That is one of the cases I'm dealing with right now regarding stamp duty. And if you're a first-time owner, you're supposed to get certain exemptions, right, under the Finance Act.
And is this? I think is up to $2 million.
$2 million. Yes. $2 million. It was 1.2, went up to $2 million. And you allow as a first-time owner to have a $2 million exemption. I find the people that come to me, they do not get that exemption. And the argument that but the Inland Revenue says that you also have to be the borrower as well, the mortgager. And the Act basically outlines there is an exemption if you're the owner, if it's assigned to you, and also for the mortgage. So it's two parts. And a lot of times people just don't get the exemption. They'll apply for it and they won't get it. So I do have two matters before the court right now that I'm dealing with on that issue.
And I mean, without disclosing, of course, the parties, can you just explain exactly why is it that you are now before the court with respect to that particular issue of exemption?
Yeah, well, I think, like I said before, you would find that the person who's doing the assessment, they will say, listen, you have to be both owner and mortgager. And the Act has no definition that says you have to be both owner and mortgager. So it's a matter of statutory interpretation as well. I've done submissions on that issue as well. And that is even before the court right now. I mean, I won't give, and there's also one I did which was allowed. They didn't dispute it at all.
But then practically, can you really be owner and mortgager? Because isn't the mortgager The bank?
Right. So,
Or whatever lending institution or whomever.
So if you are the owner, as the title owner, so if you sell a property to me, they will convey title to myself. You'll find a lot of people, they will get their father or they will go into a situation where they both of them will borrow monies from the bank. And they're saying, like, listen, because you are not the one that's getting the money, you are not going to be allowed to have this exemption.
And in terms of the precedent set by the court, is it that the court, I mean, you said that you have a matter currently before the court with respect to a particular similar matter, but are there precedents set where the court has...
I haven't seen the precedents as yet, but I know there's a few cases like mine before the court at this moment. And
how long does the court take to assess? Is it that they go through a trial stage?
Yeah. So you bring your matters before the court. Well, let me just go through the process.
Certainly.
Briefly. You file a notice of appeal. The state body has within 21 days after service of your documents to file what you call a statement of case. Now, it's not a statement of case in a real sense as in the High Court. The statement of case is actually a sort of a defense, and they will put their grounds on how they came to this valuation, how they assess it, and what things they consider. And they will also file what you call a statutory bundle. Statutory bundle is synonymous to our disclosure bundles. And every document that they have in their possession, especially ones that are stamped, etc., and reference numbers, they will put that in statutory bundle. That's very important. So that's a defense. If they don't file that, you can look to strike out their you can look to get the appeals allowed. And I've done that a few times as well. Indeed. So you could put in a reply. You have 14 days to put in a reply. Of course, all these things you can get an extension of time under Rule 17 of the Tax Appeal Act. And then when you reach there now, the court will give you directions to file affidavits and evidence. And you can also make applications as well in between, just like the High Court. When that is done, and I find in the tax appeal courts, there's an encouragement to settle the matters. And often or not, when you file a matter, I think they will approach you and say, well, let's have discussions and settle it. Only if both sides believe they're firm that they're going to win their appeals, then they won't have any settling. But most of the time, their parties sit down and settle and say, look, I'll allow this and I won't allow this. So it depends on the period of settlement. But ideally, I think in less than a year, you can get to a trial. Well, then it's up to the judges now to give you their decision, which I really can't give an opinion on that. Sometimes it's very quick, and sometimes it'll take probably a couple of months.
And meanwhile, the layman has to, well, a question though, does the layman, well, the person who the tax has been imposed on, do they have to pay on that tax before the decision? Or, I mean, because I know usually in the normal course of things, you may pay for something and then figure out later that, listen, I was, I was disenfranchised or I was disadvantaged.
I'll answer it with regarding customs.
Indeed.
So in customs, what they do is they give you a deposit to pay, right? And you'll pay that deposit, but that doesn't mean you have given in on your matter. You can still dispute your matter. When you win, you get refunded the deposit. The court makes the order, you get refunded. In the case of income tax, it's different. I advise my clients to put in some money or pay some money, because when you come out of court, the penalty, the interest is rising. So that's something I look at as well.
Oh, so if you lose your matter, you pay on the interest from the time?
Usually I will approach the other side and say, listen, okay, could we start with interest from this point? And most of the time they'll say yes, no, there's not an issue with that. They'll go back and they'll come back and say yes. They'll start the interest at a certain point. That is one of the dangers of it though.
Because it's unfair for a litigant to have to pay all that interest when it's not there for that the court timetable.
Correct.
Took a while, basically.
And when we got this grace period to the taxes, a lot of the attorneys on the BI will says, look, go and pay the tax, and after we can talk about the matter. Now, if you pay money into the income tax and you win your matter, that'll go as a credit to your next year, other years of filing income taxes.
So it's not a matter that you will be refunded?
You're not going to lose, you're not going to lose your money at all.
But if you are asking to be refunded, they will refund you?
Well,
or is it that you would advise your clients
I think, they're very hesitant to refund when it comes to income tax. They will say, well, they'll put it towards the next year.
But of course, it's optional.
It's optional, of course, yes.
In the grand scheme of things, it's optional,
of course,
but it's not really optional.
Yes, it's optional, yeah.
But it's not really optional.
I won't comment.
Yes, I haven't put you in that position. But of course, let's move up. I have an example. Okay, so for instance, when you present your deed for assessment, right? from a client that you will execute a conveyance, and you present also the valuation. And let's say the valuation is the valuator value the property at 500,000, right? Usually BIR would have their own assessment or their own assessors value it. I think it's the valuation division will do that. Let's say, for instance, they now value it at a higher rate in terms of, let's say, 1 million. Can you challenge that valuation?
Yes, you can. Yes. Any assessment, you can challenge it. Any assessment.
And that goes through the process of challenging in the tax appeal court. And for instance, if you are challenging that, it means now that you cannot register your conveyance until this matter is concluded.
Like I said, you have the option of paying it and then coming back and asking for a refund. That's what you could do.
Because is it that you run the risk of paying penalties? I mean, I know we have the exemptions now, but is it that you risk paying penalties if after a certain number of months pass? I think it's 3 months. If you don't, is it that you don't register your deed? Then penalties will be imposed.
Well, and then the evaluation falls apart to have a certain time, 6 months. You can't use evaluation again. So I would recommend, look, if you want to take this fight, go ahead and pay it and you'll get a refund after. And again, it boils down to really the haves and have not, because at the end of the day, you are paying on your tax and you have to pay an attorney, counsel to fight your matter, and we know that attorneys of your standing are not cheap, right? You're not cheap. So therefore, I mean, does legal aid deal with these type of matters? I've never met a guy in legal aid dealing with these type of matters. I have no knowledge on that.
Because I would think, obviously, if you are paying tax, if you're a business owner, right? If you're purchasing property, it means that you have some asset, right? So it may not be that you qualify for legal aid. And dealing with VAT, you mentioned VAT as well can be challenged.
Yes, you can challenge VAT.
In what way VAT can be challenged? Is it that, because I know that, is it like the VAT of 12.5%, the standard VAT, or what other VAT?
Yeah, well, sometimes they especially when you ask for a refund on VAT, and a lot of companies ask for a refund, you can be challenged, and they will pick up those things. The BIR will look at that and say, listen, you're going to refund this year, last year you get a refund, something that's right, maybe not calculating your VAT properly, and they'll go into your accounts.
In what circumstances can you challenge? Is it that...
So they will come back and they'll assess and say, oh, you're not going to get a refund, this time you owe us money. So definitely people will actually challenge it, and they'll challenge the process of how they... Remember, they have a quasi-judicial function, and they have a procedure to follow. It's not arbitrary. So whatever documents they look at and they come to their findings, you can review that process as well. And I think that's the basis of challenging all tax matters. You review the process. That's the most important thing.
Nizam, we'll be right back. We have to take a break. You're watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Thank you.
We exposed 5 strangers to KFC's delicious chicken to see if any time could be KFC time. And at the first bite, the party began. We repeated the experiment during the day, during business hours, on weekends, with sunshine, with rain. And it's confirmed. KFC's flavor makes anytime KFC time. KFC, it's finger licking good.
August 14th, local government election night returns. Understand what's happening in your community. WESN presents our special election coverage with a panel of trusted citizens and context you will not get elsewhere. Special coverage begins from 7 p.m. on the premier platform for Caribbean content, WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
And we are back. You're watching Strictly Legal. We are speaking about challenging customs matters in the tax appeal board with Nizam Saladeen, attorney at law. I mean, before the break, we were discussing in terms of the ways in which you can challenge tax-related issues, or rather figures, exorbitant figures sometimes that the Board of Inland Revenue may want to charge an individual. And let's go to the burning issue of customs. I mean, many times, a lot of persons now, they purchase products online, right? And of course, case in point, you have a skybox. You present your invoice, right? Your items are assessed, and then boom, you get a fee that you didn't think that you would have gotten, and then obviously it's either you leave it or you pay it. I mean, most freighting companies, I believe they will inform you that at least you have to pay it. Now, in terms of challenging custom taxes, duties rather. Right. Now, you and I know, I'm sure you order online, yes, that the taxes or the customs, the duties that are paid are not consistent. I have personally been, I wouldn't want to use the word victim, but I have witnessed where I would buy one item for the same price on one day, and then buy the same item 2 months later, and I get a totally different tax bracket. Can you just explain how customs, how do they, obviously we are aware that there is a scale. Yes, or there is a scale. Right? But as an expert, can you share some light in terms of
in the Custom Act,
working into their minds of how they challenge?
Chapter 70.01, the Custom Act, there is a schedule, and there's a very detailed schedule on the taxes you pay on imports. And items from down to food, down to tires, etc., etc. Now, we have to be a little bit careful too as well. Sometimes it depends on the company you're dealing with. So I might be with company A, courier service, you with company B, and company A may charge a little extra because that's their rate, right. And company B may do that. So it may look like it's customs, but I understand where you're coming from.
Just to stick up in, usually, I am drawing an example. I have an account with company A and company B. Right. Now, usually on their invoices now, they would state what are their freighting charges, and then they would put what are freighting, handling, insurance. Then they would put customs duty, online tax, whatever the case is. Yeah. Right? So is it that you are saying that sometimes it may be that the freighting company may, I'm saying freighting, but that's the courier services, is that they would add on to the customs duty rates?
Some of them have just parting figures. No, they don't interfere that at all. I hope they don't.
Right. Because I've heard instances where,
yeah, well, that's something when you run a speculation.
Indeed.
Okay, but so the methods before the tax appeal court, it wouldn't be online shopping basically. It would be importers buying goods from China and from Europe and all that. You could still challenge it if you want to in a tax appeal court if you feel that the assessment is incorrect.
You're saying that you cannot wait?
You can. Okay. Of course,
online
any assessment by any state body, you can challenge it. But you won't find people doing that. I wouldn't buy a phone or any other item and come and bring that as an appeal. Maybe it might charge a little bit more to bring the attorney in. That's probably a possibility. So I've never seen that, but it is challengeable, any assessment. You will find in the tax appeal court, you'll find people who buy containers of goods, especially from China. You have a lot of people bringing challenges. So let's go to the process. And it will apply also to online shopping as well. And I know in online shopping, and when you buy goods from a mass amount, you would put your invoice in. So you'll follow that C82 form, right, a declaration form, and you'll put in exactly how much you paid for the goods, the description of the goods, etc. And your broker will take that and give it to customs, and they will look at it. So, like I said, a custom officer has to follow procedure. And this is where we challenge them. And I think we can talk about this in the program where you can challenge customs, the things to look for. You program yourself as an attorney at law. Or maybe someone who does importation and say, listen, I'm going to challenge you because this was not done. No, I picked up on this. You have to start what they call it transactional value. And if you look at Schedule 6 in the Custom Act, there is a procedure to follow. The first port of call is the transactional value or the transaction value. That is the value paid for the goods or the value payable for the goods, right? That is enshrined in your invoice. Now, the thing is whether customs believe you or not, right? So that's where you start off from. And online shopping, you would put in an invoice and they will not believe your figure, right?
But why?
Right. So what they will do, so this is the starting point.
Yeah.
They know, and they have some important cases, Saga Trading versus Comptroller Customs, the Symmetry case, and there's a DS Mirage case as well, right, versus the Comptroller of Customs. These cases, in almost every appeal I've seen, they always bring up these cases, and they start off with the transactional value. Now, yes, as a customer officer, you may have a feeling, listen, I don't trust this invoice, right? But you have to make reasonable inquiries. And if you come back with reasonable inquiries and there's nothing wrong with the invoice, you have to accept the transaction value before you. You have to accept the invoice. So two of my colleagues, they did a matter. I saw the judgment, and when they cross-examined the customs officer, so he went into this thing about he didn't accept the invoice, and he did a different calculation. And they asked him, he said, well, did you think the invoice was fraudulent? And he said, no, I did not. And the appeal was allowed because you're not supposed to budge from it. You must, as a state body, provide good reasons why you're deviating from the value before you.
And not on how you feel or what day or what grievances you have.
Absolutely not.
With
authorities.
That's
arbitrary. So you have to follow its procedure. You have a judicial function. So that's the first thing to look at. And a lot of attorneys will start at that point. Why didn't you accept my invoice? Now, when customs gets a CA2 and they realize this and they don't accept the value, they'll send you a notice of query and give that to your clerk or your broker. And they'll say, we want certain documents. Now, the key documents you always have in every case is your transfer documents to show how much you paid for it. That will show exactly what your invoice reflects. Now, some people, they back off because they pay in part payments. That's not a problem. You put an affidavit, you explain you paid half or you paid some before, you tell them exactly what it is, and you give evidence. And then we could say, listen, they have to accept the transaction. Well, that has happened in the court already, where someone has put an affidavit and they've explained why they were part payments, and there were payments and credits inside. If they deviate from the transaction value, they must give you reasons why. And if they do not, we go down the sixth schedule, and you have to transition that schedule from going from section 4 to 7. If they realize that there are goods on their database, there's a custom database, and they will compare that to identical goods. That's the next step. And from that, they'll take the value of the goods and charge their duties accordingly. If you don't have identical goods, you'll go down to similar type of goods. Or even that too, I look at that and challenge it. If you use identical goods, I want to see the evidence of what you consider as identical goods, right? You have to look at the characteristic of the goods, if they perform the same function, if they have the same components, etc. Many times when you go to court and they ask them to produce that, and even though that database could provide printouts, they don't have it. And you can succeed on your appeal as well. I'll give you an example. I was doing a matter with car parts, right? This person, they brought on containers of car parts. And I asked the customer officer, listen, you would agree with me that these parts, these Nissan parts, these will be common, you will get these parts coming through customs frequently. I said, more often than not. She was like, yes, these are common parts. So your database will reflect the price for these parts. So I said, but it's strange to see in your statement of case and in your evidence that you use similar type goods, right? Why using similar type goods?
How do you quantify similar type goods?
And then I said, well, you agreed with me to that a Nissan part is different from a part for a BMW, right? So I just want to know what value you got. So I said, well, show me for this rearview mirror, show me the part you compared to in your database, and they can come up with it. So you can set them up in that way. And
well, it boils down to really training. Do these customs officers have the training or the skill set that is required? And I'm sure you probably say that in your court examination. How are you trained
The
to
thing
know
is,
what is a BMW versus what is a Nissan?
right.
You know?
And that should be part of your training too. If you
Precisely.
are comparing, if your job is to compare, go on a database and compare, you must know what it is you're looking for. And like I said, like a Nissan bar come to the country almost every 2 weeks, you must have on your database. So then you question the database. Now the database is actually a guide. It's not something that is the holy grail. It's a guide. It's basically a guide. So the court has allowed them to use internet values as well. And we both know the internet is vast, and you can find something for $1,000 in another country, and you can find it for about $500 in another country. So that is important too as well. When you ask them, if you look at internet value or you went in your database, what country did you take the value from? There have been instances where they said, I don't know which country they took it from. So you don't know the trading values, the trading levels at all. So those things are challengeable as well. When we go into the realm now, you've passed into the realm of similar goods. That's something you can make mass with, of course, because you can question about why do you think that these goods are similar, right? And you could go and question about, are the components different? Sometimes the parts of something are different. Sometimes they may do the same function, but of course the parts are different as well. So those are things you could challenge on. These are things you look for. You look at the transaction value first, then look at the comparison of the goods, and if they had followed that procedure, and that is clearly outlined in the legislation, you must follow that procedure. When they fail to do that, then your appeal could be allowed, or it could be sent back to be reassessed, or they could vary the assessment. The court has the power to do that as well.
What about instances, and I'm being very cautious here, but what about instances where, and I'm sure you may have clients that may have disclosed this to you, where they were coerced to pass a bit of a few $100 or $1,000 to lower their tax, to lower their duties.
Your client said that, or?
Well, I mean, it's alleged. Let's use the word alleged. I mean, being real, this is Trinidad and Tobago, and this is something that, I'm not certain if you have done a matter like that, where there are issues which involves, it comes to the integrity of these
those things, of course, that goes into the criminal realm, and
right.
Of course, as attorneys, we have to be confidential, and
Indeed.
So I would just say that.
Put on the Legal Professional Act one time.
So we frown upon those things. But it does occur in Trinidad and Tobago.
And
there are several cases.
You will agree with me.
And those matters find themselves in magistrate courts.
Right.
So tax appeal court will not deal with those issues. I mean, while they deal with tax appeal issues, you would find things like natural justice coming in, best evidence, those sort of legislation coming into but all surrounding the assessment of appeals. But things like that, where you're talking about, that goes to magistrate court, where there's a criminal element.
Indeed.
And there are fines, $125,000, there's 6 months in prison, those things that could happen. And yes, I've dealt with matters like that.
Of course, in the tax appeal court, which can be now transferred, well, based on the findings, then that can be a recommendation for criminal proceedings.
Yeah, go for criminal proceedings, that's correct.
Right, so is it that the bulk of the custom challenges are for persons who are bringing in large quantity of goods?
Yeah, most of them is these large importers and probably sole traders that deal in containers of goods. As you know, Trinidad and Tobago, we import a lot of stuff from China, right? China is the hotspot. And custom will say, listen, we don't accept the values. Now, there's another thing I was supposed to mention. If customs believe you're paying a lower price and it's not on your database, there's a higher price, you can say, listen, because of the bulk I'm purchasing, I'm giving this a discount. And you'll find that my clients as well, they'll produce documents or correspondence stating that if you buy so much, you'll get a discount. So you can use that as well. Those are good evidence can be used in a court to allow your appeal. And also, if you have I won't say a relationship, but because of your continued years of service, you would find that these vendors from abroad, they would give the importers a certain amount of discount or a cheaper price, a competitive pricing, special pricing as well. And you can bring evidence to that. There was a case I did where we did a translation of the documents to show that, listen, this is one of our long-standing clients, they have a cheaper rate, they buy bulk purchase from us, and we got our postal seal and put it in court, and the court gave credence to the evidence as well. Now, The good thing with virtual is that you can actually get a witness from China to appear and give evidence stating like, yes, we really did give them a discount, and provide evidence on the industrial practice there as well. And that has happened before.
Okay, and what are some of the reasons why they will not accept invoices from China?
Well, like I said, they will see something for 20 US and you will declare it's 10 US. So, I mean, to be fair, that will raise eyebrows. But again,
well, you have an invoice in front of you.
You have an invoice with an email and a phone number, and pick up the phone, send an email, and make some inquiries.
Unless they are insinuating that you edited your invoice.
Right, and that's another thing. They will insinuate that, of course. It's up to you now. Like I said, what trumps everything, the strongest evidence is actually your transfers, your money transfers, the transaction.
Yeah.
If you show that, there's no doubt that you paid that amount of money for it.
I was actually watching a TikTok video, I know you're off course, where some, you know the child on the boat that goes up, who laughs after crying, laughs.
Right.
He cries and then laughs on the boat, and it was like, this is me when I tell customs that this is the price I pay and they charge me something else, right? Yeah. I mean, I know it's a funny thing, but it's a serious matter. And there are also some concerns. Now, you know, there are a lot of time where like Amazon and these online shopping companies always have sale. Yep. Right? Yep. That's for instance, Fashion Over or those places that people shop, Macy's, whatever. Maybe you shop there. Now, you will get 50% off or 60% off of items. You present that invoice, the customs officer is disputing the price of that particular discounted rate, and they would want to charge you the full rate. Is that legal though?
That is not legal. They are deviating from the transaction value and send them a credit card statement.
Because just this week, I have had, me personally, I've had an issue where I bought a particular item, right? At a cost online. You know the cost is expensive.
Yeah,
right? It's $250. I get it for $100. Right? Submitted my invoice. I got an email from the courier stating that customs decided that they're going to up. And if I want to challenge, I can sending my receipts, which I did. Right. And right now they are currently assessing it, right? Because they don't believe in the discounted figure. Which in my mind, if you purchase an item for that value, regardless of whether it's a discounted value, what legal authority that they have, right? To dispute that and charge you what is the full original price.
And the only way they could deviate from that is they have to have good reasons. And if they have good reasons, then you should be allowed to pay the lower end.
And of course, what are some of the instances of good reasons?
Good reasons, if, like I said, the best evidence is transaction values. Producing documents on wire transfers when you actually paid for that. Producing documents from the supplier stating that we have given you a discount because you bought bulk purchases or because you are one of our long-standing clients. Saying that we have a sale, those are good evidence to use.
Well, but of course it means that, well, if you're not an attorney to represent yourself, it means that now you have to engage an attorney, pay consultation fees, right? Then challenge, right? Of course, then challenge, and obviously by the time you are completed, you are paying more than the $100 US difference. Yeah. Some persons may go the long haul just to prove a point.
Prove a point, yeah. And to set up
as you said, precedent.
Yeah.
Right?
So when you see my name, don't do that.
If you need a tax appeal attorney, go to Nizam. Nizam will handle you well. I'm sure you can just say strictly legal and you may get a discounted coupon. Of course, this is not advertising in case some quarters are watching.
That's right. So be careful on that. But thanks for the recommendation.
Indeed. So in terms of the customs process, we have it applies also to air freight as well.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Right. Any assessment done, you can challenge it. Any assessment.
Now, how can when an assessment is completed, the court allows an appeal. Now, I know this goes into the human resources. Does the customs officer is the customs officer given the opportunity to pay part of your legal fees for the purpose of...
We're talking about costs now.
Yeah, costs now, yeah.
Tax appeal courts don't really issue costs at all. There are circumstances, and that is in the act, and that's like if there is a certain amount of unreasonableness from a party, or it's an issue of law that's very important and hasn't been traversed before. Those are instances where costs will be allowed. You have to apply for that, by the way. They don't give that automatically. But it's not a court will give back costs, no.
And of course, as you said, you have to prove, well, obviously, I mean, you have to prove why it is that you would want that cost.
Yeah.
For your client.
You have to make an application for that.
Yeah. So it definitely means that this is not really a pro bono.
So it's not there. So you wouldn't get back costs because of your attorney services, etc., etc. But if there's an unreasonable delay by one of your witnesses or something like that, then yes, you can apply for it.
Is there any other circumstances where you can bring a matter before the tax appeal court? I mean, I know you mentioned border and revenue matters, custom matters. Are there any other circumstances?
I don't think so. Only a body that does assessment on taxes, that's where you can take those matters. Nothing else out of that. But like I said, you would encounter different areas of law while you're doing your appeal.
No, I just want to touch on, obviously, you can advise me whether you are in that capacity to speak on it. But in terms of now, I know that the authorities are trying to streamline what you call incorporated trying to be a revenue authority.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Now, and of course, there's a lot of back and forth in terms of challenges to that. Now, is it that with the coming on board of the revenue authority, would there be a greater responsibility to ensure that that the rate of the assessment of taxes are done efficiently and to its statutory limits?
Well, I think the charging of taxes and duties are enshrined in the various, the custom tax, of course, and they will have to follow procedure. Again, I don't think there's a new law regarding the increase of taxes or anything like that at all. I think it's a matter of merging the bodies together, have a centralized figure to deal with all taxes. So there is, I guess they'll probably have a pooling of the attorneys as law as well, and probably people are doing the assessments, but I don't think it's going to change. I mean, it's my opinion. Yes, I think it's going to be the same fight at the end of the day. You made an assessment. I'm going to challenge it because I believe you didn't follow procedure or you didn't believe my values. I have the evidence. I think it'll come back to that at the end of the day. Otherwise, no, I don't think it's not going to be any. I don't think there's going to be anything different at the end of the day.
So it really boils down to, well, it should be objectivity, but because of human nature, it's always a subjective test.
Yes, it is a subjective test.
Because if I am customs officer A, well, assessor A, you assessor B, I may have a different opinion to you. So is it that now there is a higher authority in let's say customs that an officer can go to seek clarity as to whether or not I can charge or dispute this invoice that was submitted?
Well, I mean, that's the inner workings, but like I said, the legislation clearly outlines the procedure with dealing with charging duties, and that's the Schedule 6, the 6th schedule, where you follow and you traverse it, the schedule. And what is you apply, if you believe the transaction value, it stops right there. If not, you go further, you compare your own database for identical items and then for similar items. But it's not an unfettered discretion. They have to stick to the procedure outlined in the Schedule 6. And that will never change unless they change the legislation, of course.
And just for the viewers and listeners' edification, in terms of what items, I know there are a few items that are exempted. What sort of items are exempted from?
Well,
from
it's
duties?
an ongoing list, but I mean, I know, I think now like certain electronics are exempted. I mean, I don't have the exhaustive list. I fight those that are not exempted.
No.
So that'll be a matter of personal information. But I mean, from purchasing stuff online, I would know like, I guess, certain electronics like computers, those are exempted.
And phones and
those things that come back. They were once not.
I think recording devices, like camera, DVRs, and CCTV. Can a tax lawyer, can you challenge, of course, the courier company's decision to charge X on freighting charges? Can you challenge those things?
Well, I don't think that wouldn't apply to the tax appeal board. Of course, you can challenge that, of course. If they have a contract that says we're going to charge you this, and they didn't charge you that. You can't do that. But you can't bring it before the tax appeal.
And is there any other like key decisions that you want you may want to mention in terms of particularly these challenges?
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, one of the key decisions was the SAGA trade-in, which is the control of customs, and they were talking about the transaction value. And the starting point, in this case, was significant that the starting point is if you have an invoice before you, you have to accept the value, or you must have good grounds not to. You can't just in a whim, I suspect this is a wrong value. If you suspect, you have to make a reasonable inquiry. And that is also outlined in the Esmeralda case as well. And I think, like I said, every appeal will probably have these cases in them. And then there's the symmetry case, which enforces what is said at why you follow the legislation, that you follow the 6th schedule. And if you reach a point, let's say you accept the transaction value, you go no further. If you pass that point on, you go down and you say, listen, identical goods, I found the identical goods on my database, you go no further. If you don't find identical goods, you go down to similar goods. And if you find similar goods, you go no further. And this is what these cases highlight. And there's some, so even the idea of natural justice is also brought in as well, where you have to provide these reasons. And then the Chief Justice at that time made some very, very, very good directions on natural justice and about giving reasons. So we hold on to those things as well. And when we analyze a matter, we bring those things into analyzing the matter to challenge the decisions of the customs officer. Now, the thing with the tax appeal board is when they do decisions, because of the monetary value of the claims, they will not put the name of the company on the judgments. And you will see that. They will have things like AAX or ABD, whatever, versus the Comptroller of Customs, or versus the BIR. When you go to the tax appeal court, you cannot bring a friend to sit in. Most of the times, the matters dealt with between the attorneys. Yeah.
It's similar to family matters because of the
nature of the information as before.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So, the key judgment, the judgments have shown a certain pattern, and the certain patterns are regarding the transaction value, where you have good reason. I gave the example of the customs officer saying he don't think that the invoice was fraudulent. The appeal was allowed based on that, right? So he didn't have to go to the exercise now of looking for similar goods on the database. Then we have the challenges again of identical goods. What is identical good? What's a similar good? Show me on your database what you use to compare. Those are cases that highlight those things as well. And those are the areas, those are the cases that will highlight that. But that pattern is consistent throughout the judgments in the tax appeal court.
And of course, it will make things easier for attorneys. I mean, once you are familiar with those decisions, to really fight your client's case in their best interest. Yeah. And most times, I'm assuming that it is a successful rate, really.
Yeah. Like again, in the tax appeal court, they encourage negotiations and settling of matters. And more often than not, you'll be approached by the attorney law. So give us a long time to come back, and let's sit down and talk. And I'll allow this, and I won't allow this. And it's up to your client. If your client says, okay, good, I get a discount of $100,000, I'll go ahead and pay it. That's fine.
And ADR really is what is encouraged as well.
It's encouraged as well. Yeah. It'll save a lot of time and a lot of applications, etc.
And judicial cost, as they say. Any closing statements, Nizam? I know we're out of time. I know we were having fun.
Are we out of time?
Yes.
Closing statements. I wish you had more time. Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful experience. Thank you very much.
I think obviously there are different areas, and I believe if I may, I want to invite you back.
Sure.
Just to go more in depth in these areas, because, and of course, in terms of accepting any calls or anything like that, I know we didn't accept any calls today, but just because this is an area that is growing and a lot of citizens have concerns, right? And it's just a matter, and I believe with you being here today, it was very knowledgeable, so persons can have an understanding of how they can challenge these decisions.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so thank you so much. Guys, it's a wrap. You have been watching Strictly Legal. I am Rondell Donawa with my noble guest, Nizam Saladeen. So see you next time. Have a good day. Enjoy.